Joe, Bob Hauser, 981-2034. Still trying to catch up with you since we had dinner together. So give me a yell. Thanks. Kathy, Bob Hauser, we're excited you're getting married. Looking forward to seeing you and Jeff. And I'm not coming until Saturday morning, but so I'm sorry about Friday night. But I know you'll have fun, and I can't wait to see you guys get married. So we're thinking about it. No need to call me back. Just wanted to share that you were in my thoughts. Talk to you soon. Bye. Morning, Lovie.
Good morning, how are you?
Well, thank you. How are
Is it
you?
just the two of us tonight?
I don't know. It might be. I'll be right back. Well, I stopped by the downtown office, and I actually have a box now. Made out of it. I would. That's that part.
Good morning. Hey. Got it. Okay. Right. Mm-hmm.
All right. How's my accountability partner?
Right.
Excuse me.
Or Mr. Hauser?
Michael, good morning.
Sorry, sir.
You're looking,
Is that Logan there?
yeah, she was on the phone.
Yeah, I know. I just didn't want to figure out how many people were going.
Well, you made it.
Again, yeah, with not even a moment to spare.
Well, I will say, Michael put his head in, but,
I saw him copying and so he
I think you're early.
for once.
What have you done in your life, Bob? I know you haven't done real estate the whole
I
time.
haven't ever been a guest of the governor or the president.
You've done everything
No.
else. You should be a stand-up comedian.
That's pretty scary. But is it any scarier than meeting a client for the first time and wondering if, it's going to work out or going to sink a lot of time and effort for nothing? I don't worry about that too much, but imagine a crowd of 100 like that.
Yeah, I would think that would be, I have no fear of clients. And that's just age and experience and.
You're there to find out what each other needs and
Yeah, I
see if
mean,
you can do it.
as time along, I feel like I'm gonna be, as good as most of the people they interact with.
Better than some.
And better than some. So I feel like, okay, I have a role in this, but you're right, I like public speaking. And I don't mind telling a joke, but could I go up and like tell a whole, like entertain for an hour? I would find that extremely
I guess that's what I was,
unsettling.
I totally agree, which is the short answer to your first
But
question.
you have a good wit,
Well, they say, and
and you make me smile. So I don't smile that easily, so
you and the
you
president,
gotta give.
the president doesn't smile, like he's smiling a little more these days.
I don't pay attention to the Donald, not
Good for
because
you.
I'm a conservative, I just,
He's-
the whole, it's all too upsetting to me. It's a
And why
traditional-
alienate half the market by spending, I studied
yeah.
politics and I've been involved in different levels and I enjoyed it.
Have you been elected?
I'm not,
So you've
I've never
never,
run for anything.
yeah.
But staff and campaign staff mostly, and a little bit, a teeny bit of management and using effort. But, yeah, my favorite trip though was when I was 21 or so and went up to get involved myself in the Massachusetts primary, which George H.W. Bush was running for the Republican nomination, which he eventually lost to Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
there was an independent from Massachusetts.
Muncie?
No, independent from, I think it might have been John Anderson, and all the sort of more moderate Republicans, if they didn't like Bush, they're like, well, the hard conservatives didn't like either Bush or Anderson, they liked Ronald Reagan.
Sure.
And so that was the first time I.
Yeah, you just look like a nut job coming out of California.
John Anderson. Oh, Reagan.
Reagan, I
What
mean,
terms?
people think of him as being, Ronald,
That
George
actor.
Washington liked him. But back then, when he was governor, people thought he was a nut job.
Well, the things got out of control at Berkeley, and he just gassed them.
Yeah, right.
That was the gas.
he
What?
was almost really, right? He had the makings of being Donald Trump, except he actually
Well, the diatribe about it being just a washed up actor, and second fiddle to Errol Flynn.
Yeah.
Which he was in Santa Fe, which is a good movie to see, because, like, well, yeah, so, but 2 terms as governor made him something more than just a washed up actor. I mean, after all,
Well, he's been head of the actors union, I think.
Talking about
he
Reagan.
was, yeah.
Yeah, it was really, this got off track. Bob doesn't want to tell me about himself. I'm trying to get to know him on a deeper level, and he's taking me back into Ronald Reagan.
That's because it's live streaming, he doesn't want anybody to publicly know.
I didn't even think about that.
But this morning on the news, the Ronald Reagan Museum just announced they've done this hologram that literally looks like Ronald Reagan is standing on stage doing different.
Roy Orbison just had a show, they did that, with live musicians and Roy. So we're getting into some really strange.
I mean, let's just go ahead and take the DNA and, recreate them.
That's next.
So let's get started. I think Logan's going to join us. I don't know.
So we'll have this conversation.
I will reach out, we'll get a call.
There you go. Bob Bollinger, you don't know this, but I had a pneumonia shot yesterday. And the doctor told me that it might kick my butt, and it has kicked my butt. I mean, not sick or anything,
That's shocking your immune system.
I came home last night. Hey, Logan. I came home last night. I was asleep in my chair by 8 o'clock. You guys, why do you always have to split them up and get it all confusing?
Sure, I've been reading them. I assume that multiple pages are being distributed.
Sorry about that. That's okay.
Anyway,
I was dead asleep in my chair at 8 o'clock last night, and I woke up at 9. I went up and came downstairs about 5, laid back down on the couch. Woke up at 7, which is just, Dottie thought I was dead. And she was afraid. She looked over to see if my chest was moving, and that kind of thing. I just never was asleep at that time. But, anyway, so I feel fine. But
this is to prevent you.
Just a sort of, yeah. And you take one this year and then another one next year. So there's a second deal. And I was just telling Ann that the disconcerting thing about my physical yesterday is he kept on saying, at your age. At your age. I was like, come on, Mark, really? With all these grandchildren around at your age. And I'm like, oh, crap, no, I don't want to go there.
Have you ever had pneumonia? No. It is the sickest. Mine was community acquired. I was at the beach.
Community acquired.
Yeah, so I didn't have a cold. I woke up literally, I'm sorry, with the little paper, but I woke up with body aches. I thought I'd been in a car wreck. In fact, I started icing it. Wow. It was that painful. And it was really that, sports and all, I know what it feels like to hurt. And I wasn't feeling like, okay, this is some virus. Felt like, again, I've been run over by a truck.
Yeah, my mother's had it a couple times. It's just like an elephant sitting
I
on
think
your
it really
chest.
is like giving your immune system a swift kick in. Something like that inoculation. Wow.
All right, well, I think this is I think this is a timely conversation. Obviously put these things on the calendar, but I don't know if you saw the front page of the newspaper this morning. But Daily Progress picked up the car market report. For those of you watching, front page of the Daily Progress, local housing market humming along, which I totally disagree with.
In places, in parts.
Right. But when you read this, it was like talking to Alex Hicks a few minutes ago. Alex said, I know I'm going to get a call from my listing today saying why in my household is telling the market.
Right.
The newspaper says that we're in a seller's market. And so when I write up my sort of evaluation of the market, I'm gonna talk about this whole aspect of reading between the lines. Now, I will say in this article, when you read it, the car leaders do talk about uncertainty and talk about some different things. But the other interesting thing is, and I don't know if you saw it, but last night on the news, the NBC News, they picked up on this and they talked about the numbers and everything. I don't think they did it on purpose, but the irony of it was every picture that they showed while they're doing the report was new construction. It was Ryan Holmes, it was Craig Builders, it was Stanley Martin.
That's where it's a boom.
But that's my point. My point is they didn't even realize it, but what they were literally doing is saying, this is the part of the market that they didn't talk about new construction because they never do, right? And I got the information I meant to bring in as far as new construction for that they pulled up for this quarter. But the point being is that's really the vibrant part of it, and I haven't had a chance to see this yet. This is the new Real Estate Weekly as it relates to new construction, and I just picked it up as I was coming in here, and obviously they're running this because it's part of the Parade of Homes, scenario, so it's a new construction addition, and I'll be interested to see who they interviewed and what they said. Continues the weekend with all the best in new construction. You go through this, but anyway, the nice thing again for us, presenting sponsor, double page, one wheeler front and center, which is huge.
And I guess I gotta disagree on the headline of the paper. I'd much rather get 3 calls from people who are excited about the market being good.
Right.
And I don't have a listing, but if I did, I'll take my call from a guy who says, well, I haven't sold. I'd rather have positive.
A client.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather
The other
have-
thing you don't want though is you don't want, and it dovetails right into pricing listings further, you don't want the association leaders being seen as fluffing the market. You want, like when I became president in 2009, right? President-elect 2008, president 2009, past president 2010, a wonderful time of year in our marketplace here in Charlotte. Greg Slater and I just made the decision, we're just not going to do that. You remember, a couple of you weren't in the market yet, but there was that anonymous person that called housing bubble or something that was on, I can't remember if it was Twitter or Facebook or whatever, but Greg and I just decided we're gonna stare them right in the eye and go back and forth with them honestly about the market. And they were talking about the housing bubble and all those kind of things. And so I think there's a balance that needs to be played. You want to make sure that you're telling people, yes, there's good in it, but you never want to come across as it's always, oh, this is a great time to buy. Because you hear people say all the time, that's all, no matter what the market says, the realtors are saying it's a great time to buy, it's a great time to sell. And our job, from a standpoint of being agents and getting an opportunity to list property, is to be able to help them price their listings correctly. And the point I'm making as we started is you're going in with a disadvantage when they see this, because they're thinking, oh, I can get a ton of money for my house. Alex just told me about the house that George Allen owned right there on, what was it? Was it East Mark? No, one right next to Wesley. United Methodist.
Right across from Lee Park.
Yeah, right across from Lee Park.
Yeah,
Where
Aaron.
where they lived, whatever.
Aaron redid it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they sold it. She sold it to a woman. She did a whole bunch of stuff
That's
to it.
Chinatown.
Oh, okay. Well, she bought it, put $1.5 million worth into it.
Very nice.
There, a personal and confidential email went to some people that do downtown marketing, and they don't have it in the MLS, but they're saying, we'll let somebody buy it for $4.8 million. And from what I understand, the reason is she doesn't want to be looking across at that park anymore and all the stuff that's going on there. And she's let it go, and landscaping and things. But anyway, bought it for $1 million 7 years ago, something like that. Did a lot of work to put a pool in, that kind of thing. But now saying, it's worth $4 million. Well, my guess is it's not.
That headline drives that sort of client.
Exactly. So the point being is, you get an opportunity, the first thing you're going to have to do is say, and Bob, you already said it, depending on where you live, the market is humming. In other parts, it's not. If you were coming into my neighborhood to list a house, it's not humming. There are houses that have been on the market for a good long while and reasonably priced, in my opinion, even though I live there, and some even underpriced, in my opinion, but they're not selling because they're right up against the new construction along Ryle Road, and people are choosing new construction versus resale and that kind of thing.
What's the percentage, do you know the percentage of new homes? Because you made a comment, what is the percentage of total sales that new homes comprise?
Again, I haven't dug into it yet, but over the last several quarters, it's been over 20%. 1 out of every 4, 1 out of 1.
That would be historical.
No, it's about 15% has been the historic number. It's up.
Oh, and how far back?
The last several years, anyway.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Years, again, I've been out of the market, but years ago, it was about 20.
Yeah.
On an ongoing basis.
And it's that much, but I think just from a standpoint of perception, people feel like everywhere they drive, there's new construction. Whereas that probably wasn't the case in the past. It just seems like it's almost like, Chia Pet. Just add water and there's something else coming up. You got Ravenna Village, coming up. You got, Cascadia still coming up. You got Oxford Hills out in Runkersville coming up. You've got this new one out here, Squirrel Ridge or whatever, that, land's all clear. Every place you drive, you see another, place being prepared, for new construction. And when you talk to the builders, the builders are trying to stay in that, low 4, mid 4 price range, because they know that's where the market is, and that's what's negatively impacting the resale in that $400,000 to $600,000, but really $4 to almost $1 million, because if that resale and so anyway, and then along with that, if you're doing what I'm telling you to do, and as far as looking at the hot sheet and doing those kind of things so you can see trends, we're also seeing, for me, disconcerting, and it talks, I don't think it's in here, but in the market report, it talks about the pending sales was down for this quarter, which means the fourth quarter we may see a decrease versus an increase, because
Year over year.
Yeah, because pending equals solds, 30, 45, 60 days later, right? And when you look at that, along with when you're tracking the market, there are properties that are on the market right now that never would have been on the market 6 months ago. They would have sold before they ever hit the market. Or they would have put them on the market and on Thursday, and we're going to listen to contracts on Sunday, and there would be 6 contracts on it. And there are properties right now that have been on the market for a couple months that haven't sold, like Oxford Road off of Rose Hill Drive, Banbury and Greenbrier, St. Charles off of Locust. There are properties that just would have popped because they were in that 300, low 4 range, close to the city, and it's slowed down some. And is that interest rate? Is that, we don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see. But those are the kind of things that I think we need to make sure people are aware of, and we need to know, so that we get a call. Great example. You get a call, and we'll get into this, but you get a call and somebody wants to list their house on Welford Street, which is off of Rugby Avenue and Rose Hill Drive, really nice unit. And they're gonna say, I know this house sold for $785. I know this one sold for this. I wanna get X. Well, you need to be able to say to them, that was 6 months ago. And yes, this house sold for $340. They put a bunch of money into it and sold for $785. Yes, this one over on Westwood sold for blah, blah, blah. They put a second floor on it and sold it for $785. And yes, there was this one off. However, let me show you what's happened since then. You may, unfortunately, have missed the market. And here's one of the things that when you go in and talk to sellers, one of the first things that you want to say to them when you sit down at the kitchen table or dining room table or wherever they're most comfortable transacting business, right, is before we get started, I need to have permission from you that I can be totally honest with you. Because if you're looking for somebody just to tell you what you want to hear, I'm not the right person. I'm here to help you market your house to get it sold. I see this as a job interview. And you're probably interviewing 2 or 3 people for this job to market your house to get it sold. And for me to do that, I need to have permission to be totally honest with you and not for you to get upset. Or if you get upset, we all agree that we understand this is your house, or excuse me, your home where you've raised your children and you've watched your neighbors sell for this and blah, blah, blah. But what we're talking about today is when you put this house on the market, it no longer is your home anymore. It's a house. It's no more than a can of soup on a grocery shelf. And, what kind of label you put on that can of soup could determine somebody being attracted to it versus the can of soup over here. And if the can of soup doesn't sell, even though it's attractively packaged, you can have to lower the price. Instead of 79 cents, it's 2 per dollar, or whatever the case may be. But the point being is that you want from the get-go so that when they do react defensively, or you feel like you've offended them, you stop. And going back to what we talked about yesterday about safe islanding people. Okay, let's back it up. I know that didn't feel good. I can tell that you're not happy with what I just said, but you did tell me that I had the right to be honest. What's that?
My home's a can of soup and I missed the market.
That's right. That's right.
Sure.
But that's where the building rapport and gain credibility with people, you hope that when you're selling those things, is, look, this is not to offend you. This is to give you real life information. And again, we're not, talking about the listing appointment, they were talking about pricing, but one of the things in the listing appointment, if somebody wants to be at that price, that is just totally unreasonable. We need to be able to say, you know what, I'm not the right person for you, because I can't enthusiastically market your property at this price. I'm sure somebody's going to tell you that they can do it, but I can also assure you that in 30, 45, 60 days, they're going to talking to you about lowering it. And I'll be the first person to call you and congratulate you if it sells here. And Rugby Avenue is a great example. When that house went on the market for $795, I walked into this room, I think he might have been here, and I said, this house sells any close to $795. I know the market's gone crazy. And sure enough, 5 days later, Barb killed it. Just want to let you know, it's pending, and it sold at that price.
Everybody I know in that neighborhood that I, now see periodically, has sold.
Yeah.
They've all
Off
sold.
Rugby Road,
And
what are you talking about?
Rugby Avenue.
Rugby Avenue.
So now, Rugby
Two
Avenue,
from
Rosedale
Rosedale.
Drive.
Heidi and Bob Johnson bought
Not too far from originally.
What's that?
Heidi and Bob Johnson.
Yeah.
Oh, you know who bought that house?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Mark has seen him. I haven't talked to him since they came back to town because they lived 2 houses down from my parents on Freeman Road.
Okay.
Sold it and went back to Indiana, Ohio, wherever. And then they
She's a
moved
runner.
back. She's a big runner. Yeah.
That's why I know.
He used to work at CFA Institute, consultant, and they came back. And I've noticed the other day, they've already taken the picket fence down and put up a wrought iron metal fence, which.
I mean, there's a lot of discretionary income that's in that property. And I personally think when the market adjusts, again, I may be wrong, but I think they're going to be sitting with a house that's overvalued. Now, they may not care. That's maybe exactly where they want to live. They want to be able to walk down to Murray Vet, or walk over to the YMCA, or if they want to, they can take a nice stroll to the University of Virginia from there, right? That may be just Barracks Road's convenient, 250.
Great location.
When I bought my house in Reston, second house we bought in Reston in 1991 or whatever, we bought a private house that sold for probably more than we should have bought it for, but we bought it for the location. Double cul-de-sac, we had a 91, we had a 10-year-old, 8-year-old, and 5-year-old, double cul-de-sac, off a quiet main street, elementary school, middle school, high school, all on the same piece of property across the street. Reston common ground behind it, a little soccer field. I mean, it was perfect. And so I didn't care because we were going to be there, I thought, for a long time, not quite as long as it turned out. But the point being is we bought that house at, and again, this is, what we're talking about here, but we bought that house, I think at 333 maybe. And within 2 months, it was worth 270 because it was the S&L financial crisis hit.
Never it was.
Yeah, and so went down. But then when we sold in 2005, right? So we struggled with it. I think we sold it for $575. So, we did fine because we stayed in the market just like anything else. We stayed in the longer term. And so anyway, all that being said is a precedent for pricing listings correctly. If you can do this and do it well, then you're going to have those saleable listings that we talked about yesterday. As far as your business plan, I've got several saleable listings so that I know they're going to sell in a certain amount of time. I'm going to get paid for those. I'm going to market those because they're saleable. I'm going to get other opportunities to work with buyers, whatever the case may be. And it all starts with the knowledge. Even as new, you guys have been around Charlottesville a long time, so you've got that head start, right? You kind of have a feel for things, like that Bob, being in the market. But again, you're going to be able to pick up on it faster than.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the report that Carr put out is extremely thorough. A lot of data.
So, knowledge of the market, and one of the things I would say to you as far as when you get an opportunity is previewing is essential. Previewing is essential for 2 reasons. One, it gives you knowledge. 2, nobody else does it.
Preview another home. Yeah.
People don't go out like the realtors don't go to their own house.
Well, they go on Tuesdays and stuff, and I'm talking about, you get an opportunity, you get a call to list a property in Glenmore, say, and you're gonna go meet with them on, today's Thursday, you're gonna go meet with them Saturday. There are very few agents that spend the next couple of days going and seeing what they can pull it up in the Paragon.
but they don't actually go and see the house. And one, it differentiates right from the beginning, because you can sit down with a seller and say, I've seen every house that I think you're in competition with. I've gone in them. I have notes on them. And once I look at your house, I'll be able to tell you where you fit into this, right? Most agents, they're willy-nilly going to Paragon saying this, this, and this. And this house, and even with the solds, if you're, again, go back to what we talked about yesterday, if you're going to try to have a expertise in a particular area, that every time a house comes on the market, you want to go see it. Because when it sells, you're going to have notes about that property. And so when you go to talk to a seller and they say, yeah, but this person's house sold for this, you can say, well, the reason it sold for that is because it had this, you know, the inside of it totally redone, was absolutely impeccable in regards to what it did. Or, you know, it had a backyard that no other property in the community has, or vice versa. The reason this house sold for this low, and we're not going to use it at our pricing, is it was in terrible condition. It was on a corner, had no privacy, that kind of thing. You can't get from Paragon. You know, you have to get that from truly going in and seeing them. And so in preparation for wanting to be a listing agent in a certain area, today you start previewing. And what I would do, again, as part of a geographic expertise, is I would go old fashioned. And I would print out every listing in Glenmore. Let's just use one word. I print out every listing in Glenmore. You know, in a report. Right. In a report, I 3-hole punch it and I put it in a binder. I know this sounds crazy, but then I got this binder, and every time I go and preview one of those, I've got this binder, and I just start making notes in it. And then when it sells, I move it from active into sold, right? And so what ends up happening is when somebody does call you up and say, hey, I want you to list my home, you've got this unbelievable treasure of stuff that no other agent has. And so let's talk, okay, and go back to the technique we talked about before as far as pricing, that we learned it with the leading RE. You got a list of actives, you got a list of solds, you got a list of expireds. And you say to that seller, which houses do you feel like are most like yours? And if they find the ones that expired, it's probably because they think their house is worth more than it is. Or but then you have that. But then when you go to the expireds, you go to solds, and they say, well, why did this one sell so well? You open up your binder and say, well, let me explain to you, exactly what happened. One, you've got information no other agent's giving them. Two, they're going, whoa, this person has really gone out of their way to know the market in a way that nobody else is telling me.
Like, I'm sure we have our own example, or maybe she was the realtor, but Donna Goings of Johnsonville, and
Yep.
she is Mrs. Johnsonville right now.
Right. Well, and she's also Mrs. List properties that people, anybody over 60 years old. I mean, she was a teacher. I'm pretty sure she was a teacher, and when she got in the real estate business, go back to sphere of influence, her network was the parents of all the kids that she taught. And so right now, you look at the listings she has, and almost all of them are, unfortunately, estate or people that are old and they're selling their houses. And my kids bought one of her listings, and one passed away, and the 2 daughters sold it. And so even in that Rugby Avenue area, she has a fairly good.
So there's more variables than just the big book, but she is the big book in that area, probably others, I don't know.
Right. Well, and again, you look at a Marina or a Jeff or, these folks in Glenmore, and you look at Marjorie Adam and Dunmora. You can look at certain areas and see, that they have some.
For reasons.
But you can get frustrated by that or discouraged by that, or you can be empowered by it. And the reason I say that is because even in all those markets, you look at it, they only have 25, 30% of the market. There's 70% of the other ones that is up for grabs. If I can get 25% of the 70%, I'm good, right? And it can be done. I mean, I went from, in 1983, I moved into a neighborhood, 275 homes, and I went from not knowing anybody to having 80% market share in there because of the way I went about farming it. And the key to it was the difference, only difference between me and somebody else is that I made sure that I knew every one of those 275 people personally. They all knew who I was, whether it was when I went on the, homeowners association, or, was Dottie and I were involved in the gourmet club or whatever. Everybody in that neighborhood knew me face to face. It wasn't just a postcard, it wasn't just this, it was personal. And then doing the job well. My claim to fame back in 1980, I was the first person to get a listing sold for over 100,000. And I think those things are now selling about 275, 300, whatever. But anyway, so the knowledge of the market. The better you know the market, easier it is to price a home right. And not only is it easier to price it, but it's easier to justify and explain to the people, this is the data. I'm not just throwing up on you with some pieces of paper. This is real life, what's going on in the marketplace. And I get it. And then, again, using the knowledge of experienced agents. Getting coffee, getting lunch with experienced agents and asking them, hey, we're in this kind of crazy market. How are you? I know. How are you dealing with this challenging market? Where you throw the spaghetti in the wall and it sticks in one neighborhood because it's ready, and you throw the spaghetti in the wall over here and it just drops off because it's not going to happen. And I see it firsthand, just to be putting us in my role. In the last month, there are 3 sellers that have tried to get out of their listing because we haven't sold their house, and they're trying to figure out why it's our fault. There's a property out in Louisa, really nice house, very nice, impeccable, but it's overpriced. Nothing out there has sold for that price, and yet they think it's our fault that we haven't done enough to get the people through it. And so we had to have a big powwow, and Chris and me and the agent got together, and we sent this report to them yesterday. But they understand we're not letting you out of the listing. We've got till December 1st. After December 1st, we haven't sold it. You've got every right to go someplace else. But as far as the listing agreement and the broker responsibilities, we've gone above and beyond doing stuff for you. So we're not letting you out. And we're supposed to get an answer from them today as to what, because the next thing would be, well, okay, if you want out, you have to pay for it. You have to reimburse us for costs. I hope it's not going to come to that. But the point being is, it has nothing to do with what we've done to market the house. It has all to do with the market.
Mm-hmm.
And its location. And its location.
Absolutely, location too. But
it comes down to price.
It comes down to price in that situation. You fix the house up as well as you can. The lot is immaculate, and you only got one thing left, right? Because you can't change the location, right? You can't move that particular thing. But again, the point of all that is people said, yeah, but I got to get this much for my home, and at some point, however you want to communicate it to people. You can't blame me for the market. Mm-hmm. You can blame me for a lot of stuff, but you might want to get $600,000 or whatever it is, but I don't think you can get more than $525,000. I mean, you guys dealt with this with that house in Louisa, with you and John, with that woman who wanted to be totally outrageous, and you guys handled it well. You didn't get the listing, and now it's on the market, and they're starting to nosedive with price, right?
I haven't checked, but I mean, it came. I think 549 or something is where they put it, which was way higher than we would have thought. But I need to check on that.
So Michael, I don't know what your plan is for this morning, but I'm interested. I think it is legitimate. When I price my own home, to start above where you think the market is, right? I don't know what that. I want your input on. Okay, is that 5%, 10%? Yeah, I think it is legitimate to tell people, listen, you can have a stretch goal in this process. Right. If I say, hey, I'm pretty confident at 550, you want to ask 575. I don't need maybe even 590. But
so what I would say,
let's have a plan to get back to where we.
That's right. There are 2 things to answer your question. One is, in all honesty, in a lot of markets, I think it's a bad strategy because people are coming into that house initially, and if you don't have it priced competitively, there's this sort of perception that you're not motivated.
And you waste your first impression.
Exactly. So that's the first thing.
What is that percentage?
Well, no, what I was going to say is I think there's something to be said for, let's say, for instance, let's use Rugby Avenue, Rosehill Drive. I think it makes sense if you come in at the price or even a little less because you want to draw the attention of 2 or 3 people, which is going to push it up. What you don't want to have happen is, let's say, using your example, 550 and we're at 575. What you don't want to do is have this perception, which will happen, is that you start to chase the market. So you're at 575 and now you're at 550, and then next thing you know, you're selling for less than you could have if you would have put it on the market in the first place at a competitive price. And that's the challenge of the market because each situation is different. But going back to what you said, as far as having a strategy, which I totally agree with, is let's say we think that 550 is the number and it's going to sell somewhere around 540, right? 550 is the number to list. Well, they want to list at 575. Then I would say, okay, Bob, let me just explain some reasons why that might not be a good idea. But if you still say, I want to give it a try, I say, okay, that's great. But in 2 weeks or in 30 days, if we don't get the traffic through it, or if we get a ton of traffic and we don't get any contracts, we're going to 550. And for me to take the listing, I know this sounds crazy, but for me to take the listing, we're gonna write the change status tonight and date it. Today's what's today? 12/11. We're gonna date it November 11th. You're gonna sign it. So on November 11th, we'll obviously talk on a weekly basis, whatever. When we get to November 11th, I'm gonna call you and say, gosh, I'm so sorry 575 didn't work. Just want to let you know I just changed it in the queue per what we agreed to. But I think it's better that way than somebody say, yeah, we'll talk about it later. And then you waste all this time. And that's one of the reasons why you were asking about, do we have yesterday about plans about how to market a property. This is in roadmap as well. And I actually talked to Chris this morning. Chris is going to update this and add in all the social media stuff he's doing now so that you've got kind of a template for what, the first 2 months look like, kind of thing. So thank you for bringing that up yesterday.
Well, it was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. So, but the point being is, okay, we'll just talk about it later. In my mind, I'm saying I don't want to talk about it later. I want us to know that this is what this is. This is a team effort. We're not all on board doing the same stuff. This is not going to go well. One of us is going to end up getting sideways, and that's not a good thing. The other thing that you can do is, let's just say, let's use 550 again, and they want to be at 600. There's no way. At that point, you've got to make a business decision. And my business decision is, I'd rather be the second or third realtor than the first one, because by the second or third, they finally get it. And so I would say to you, Bob, there are people that are going to be willing to list your house at 600. I'm not one of them. I can't enthusiastically go out and spend money, market this house, knowing it's not going to sell and that you're going to be mad at me. So I'd rather disappoint you now rather than have you disappointed in me later. And therefore, I get the fact you're going to list with somebody else, but here's my one piece of advice for you. I've appreciated my time with you tonight, this afternoon, whatever. The one piece of advice is I would not list your house with that person for longer than 90 days.
At 600.
At 600. And the reason being is I'm going to bet, if I'm right, and I may be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'm going to be the first one to congratulate you. But I'm going to bet that within 30 days, they're going to ask you to reduce your price. And they're going to ask you to reduce the price to where I thought you should have had it. And what I'd like for you to do is have the opportunity to list with me because I was honest with you in the first place. So give it, 2 or 3 months, and at the end of 3 months, if they couldn't get it there, then they lied to you. And there are agents out there that they're taking listings and they walk you down. They're taking it at a certain price, knowing that they can walk you down and finally get it. I think that's a disservice. And now there may be some extenuating circumstances where it's a great street appeal house. A lot of cars drive by or whatever. I'm going to put my sign up and get other business from it. Right? I may never sell that house. Let me get other business from it, so I may take it at a higher price for that reason. And the example I always use is Case Sands had a house on Avon Street, but it was one of those main streets right through the Belmont. And the guy was an absolute jerk. I mean, he was so abusive to her. He wouldn't be abusive to me. And so I ended up having an interview on a couple of years. Anyway, we ended up losing listing. Thankfully, but she got 3 buyer sales out of it. Because people called to sign, couldn't get, they said, no, it's not worth that house, but she ended up working with them on other properties. So in that situation, it made sense. But in the situation I'm describing, I'd much rather get up and get away than to be hassling with a property that's overpriced and having people say to me, how in the world are you going to think you're going to get that? And I'll give you a perfect example. Sturbridge Road, personal friend referred me to these people, lovely people, but needed to get their house sold for a lot of different reasons. But they just done an amazing job of improving on it. And so we tried to get them a higher price. We listed at $825. And this is, public records, I don't mind saying it. But we listed at $825, knowing that we were way out of our park. But if you got into the house, you saw why it was worth it. It wasn't West Terrell, it was East Terrell. West Terrell, you know, kind of demands it. So, ultimately we got them to reduce to 785. Still,
What you started?
825.
825 down to 780.
Right. 2 months in my opinion, friend of theirs, and let's just give the benefit of the doubt, that the seller asked a friend of theirs playing tennis about the house, and conversation happened. 2 months later, they won't have a listing. They don't feel like we've done our job, haven't done what we said we were going to do. We've done everything. I mean, we'd spent a lot of money on it, did everything, flipped over, turned the lights on, because they weren't there, you know, turn them off afterwards, whatever. Anyway, they wanted out because they wanted somebody who was going to list, to market the property in the way that we said we would. Well, now it's been a month. It's on the market at 785 with another company. Nothing's happened. I haven't seen any extraordinary marketing or whatever. But the point being is, we tried our darndest to do something for them because we understood their dilemma. And yet, when it didn't sell, we were the ones that got blamed. It wasn't the market.
What did it sell for?
It hasn't. It's still sitting there at 785.
Well, I guess what I'm struggling with, Michael, and maybe with experience, I'll feel better, but if somebody came to me and I said, you know, I've done my analysis and I'm 550, and they said, well, yeah, but, you know, there's some other issues, and I want to be at 595. I don't know that I've ever known the market well enough to say, okay, that's out of the market. I mean, I guess I've never felt comfortable that I could pinpoint a customer and a home, you know, be unique.
Then you're fine.
If I'm within 5 or 10%, you know, again, I feel like I could be that wrong.
Well, and again,
Now, you may not feel that way.
well, just use an example.
All the-
Let's use Darby and Glenmore. Those sell for right now, what, 500-600? Is that fair? In
I
that,
hope not, because that's where I live.
Oh,
but-
sorry. Well, maybe I'll get
I live
the
on
wrong
the
one.
right side,
Right,
you're
right.
talking on the left side.
Let's say, whatever, let's just use 600 just for the sake of discussion. And somebody says, I want to list it at 750.
Okay.
Nothing's ever sold for
Yeah,
750.
agreed.
That's my point. If you can't figure out the delta, then yeah, let's give it a try, because I quite honestly, I don't know. And where you really see it is outside of communities, where you're in an area where it's not a, you know, neighborhood. You know, this house looks this way, this house looks this way, this house has an acre, this house has 3 acres. You could be wrong easily in that situation, because it's not as easy. Whereas in my neighborhood, you know, Jim's got a listing right now in my neighborhood on River Inn. It's a gorgeous house. And I don't know what it's listed for now. It started at 7.
This is quote unquote for Bay Valley, the nicest house in the neighborhood.
Right. Yes, it is.
That's the same one you're talking about.
That's right. And it has 2 acres versus half acre. Dottie doesn't like it because you have to go down a big hill to get to it. But once you're in it, privacy, unbelievable. Backing to the soccer field on,
Yeah, turn around.
what's that
Right.
called? Polo Fields. Polo
Right.
Fields.
Right.
Gorgeous. You know, hot air balloons, you know, floating in behind it. I mean, it's an extraordinary place and deserves to get a higher price, but 600 is really, and above is kind of the highest number. So I'm praying that they get somewhere near that, because I'm going to start talking about price per square foot and, you know, those kind of things. But anyway, but the point being is they've had a lot of interest, but it hasn't sold yet. And I think part of the reason is because of the extraordinary nature of the house, Jim was willing to take it because there was reason for it. If anybody's going to get that price. All I'm saying is there was reason, if anybody's going to get that price on Sturbridge, this would have been the house to get it. All I'm saying is 2 months in, thankfully this isn't the case with Jim's, but 2 months in, we're the ones being blamed. It's not that the house, the market isn't, you know, gonna, you know, that's just not gonna work there. It was us that we hadn't done enough marketing, we hadn't done enough networking to get the right people in. In that situation, it was even more different because we actually have more real agents show up than anybody else. That's not normally the case.
Right.
You know, you normally have, you get the argument that, well, why aren't your agents showing it? In this situation, 4 or 5 of the showings were our people. And they couldn't get the people to, you know, justify the price. So in answer to your question, great question. If you're doubting, then absolutely take it. But I'm talking about when it's, you just know for sure that these people are just being, whether it's condition or location or.
It would take a needle in the haystack.
Exactly. Yeah.
I get that. Now, I guess I have more questions.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Do you talk to the seller about time? Like, what, in terms of what is your objective? Do you want to sell in 90 days, 120? Do you care if it, I mean, if you don't want to sell in a year, frankly, you're not a seller, you're, yeah, and I'm not sure I'd want that listing.
So if you walk down this a little bit, you got overall market trends, which is what this is showing you, right? Overall market trends.
Yeah.
But then you also need to know the specific market. And that's what we're talking about, knowing that particular neighborhood or that particular area should also. Good example, somebody who hasn't been on the market, they just went on vacation the last 8, and they came back and they got a call on a property in name it, community out in Crozet.
Okay.
Well, Old Trail, or even one of the ones outside of Old Trail. They go in and without doing any homework, they say, oh yeah, you can get that price for sure. Old Trail's hot, Western Albemarle is hot. Western Albemarle and Old Trail are not hot right now. The new construction, yes, but resale, you talk to Greg Slater or Tommy Brannick or any of our folks or, Jim Duncan or whatever, and they're saying, we got houses that are.
Or Judy Barefoot.
That's knowing the specific market at the specific time, right? Somebody goes in and pulls up the comps and they see the solds, they could go in and say, oh yeah, you can get this price. But when they really look at it, those solds were all 6 months ago, right? Versus let's look at the actives and days on market on the actives. And then we got to say, look, I'm really sorry, being honest, back here I think we could have gotten this, but today we can try. It's going to take longer, and my guess is we're going to have to chase the market, which I'd really encourage you not to. So you get to the seller motivation.
Michael?
And some people would flip this. They'd have the seller motivation up in the first step, like we talked about yesterday. Talking to the people when you're first going through the house before you come back for the real presentation. Why are you selling? How much time do you have? Are you bottom line or are you price sensitive? Somebody that really wants to be the person that sold their house for the most in the neighborhood. Or are you willing to sell it for less? So somebody who is price sensitive will say, okay, well, what we can do is we can try to get you this price, but what I encourage you to do is consider paying concessions to the buyer. And you get your price at 700 or whatever, but you pay 3% closing costs, the net is really 679. Oh no, I want to be 700 because nobody's ever sold a house for 700. Well, okay, great. We can try to work that out, but we might want to do that. But anyway, that seller motivation of why am I selling? How much time do I have? Now, the key though, and the place that you have to be careful is when they say, I'm not in any hurry.
And that doesn't feel good.
That's a yellow flag because they're saying, I want to get this price and I'm not in any hurry. Those are the people that are going to come back and say, in a month, they're going to come back and say, why does my house sell? Well, again, we listened up here, you said you're in a hurry, and now you're telling, you sound like you're in a hurry, kind of thing. So you have to, when somebody asks that question, what do you mean by you're not in a hurry? Hey, Yona, what do you mean by you're not in a hurry? And so that goes back to what you're saying, Bob, about
Well, it matters.
right.
I mean, if we continue with that example, somebody said, I want to sell in 60 days, and we think 550 is the math. We've done our algebraic equation and come up with 5. They want to sell in 60 days, and you're certainly looking at the market, but you're also thinking, okay, this isn't going to be 550. Right? You're going to be under 550. Right. It might be worth that if you've got a 120-day marketing period, but if you really want to sell in 60 days, we're probably
You said 2 sentences, she's already caught. Listings that haven't sold yet. No, I'm kidding. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. If it's a 60-day market. So again, you think about a triangle, and this is in the toolkit. You learn how to do the toolkit, print it out. There is a graph that shows price and time on the market. And down here, price and time on the market is broad because you're at a very realistic price, and so your days on market is going to be less, right? But as you go up, price-wise, condition-wise, whatever, days on market goes up because the price was wrong, right?
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely right. And so, that's really the key. Well, I'd like to have this thing sold, and I'd like to be closed out in 90 days. All right, well, then that means that we got to get this thing sold in the next 30 or 45 days because it can take 30 or 45 days to go to closing. So we got this 6-week
You
period.
gotta look like you gotta going out of business.
And not to pick on Yona, no, but she has 2 listings right now that are perfect in regards to what we've talked about for the last 45 minutes. You know, Belvedere
Yeah.
and Lockland Hill. 2 properties that are in great neighborhoods. There's a fair amount of activity in it, but for whatever reason, they haven't found the price yet that's going to cause somebody to act on it. And it's not that they didn't do their homework. It's just the nature of the beast. And, you know, I don't know where, I mean, and it's not that they're not marketing it. I mean, they're in there, those open houses every weekend and yeah. And, yeah.
I mean, I've
The market is
honestly
speaking.
never seen any.
Now, people don't want to hear it, but the market's speaking, and it's really only, but so many left. And the only real one that really matters, in my experience, is price.
That's right.
And that's what I told them.
You can
Both
shine it up
clients.
and you can
I said, well,
paint it.
the price is telling us we're not
Yeah.
priced in on the market. So whatever happened 60 days ago that you had an offer on it and a contract on it that was well above, that's 60 days ago, but now they're not priced.
Yeah.
And they don't want to hear that.
Yeah, they don't. And, you know, so what do you do? So let's talk about that for a minute. You've got a property that's not priced, or you thought it was priced right, but it's not. So one of the things you can do, that's an interesting sort of experiment. And, you know, I don't know if you've ever tried this, but is you take a property and it's listed at $395 or $395. And you talk to them, again, seller motivation, what's your bottom line? You know, what is your bottom line? And so they say, it's $395, my bottom line is $375, and no closing costs, all right? So if you get an offer at $375, no closing costs, then you would take that. You might try to counter it up a little bit, but if you came in, yes. Let me ask you a question. What if you got an offer for $370 with no closing costs, and they just weren't gonna budge? Would you consider it? Well, I might. Well, then at $375 is not your bottom line, right?
That's exactly
Right. And the other side of it is, what if you got an offer for $370, you didn't take it, and going back to what Yona just said, 60 days later, you still don't have another offer. Would you now take the $370? Yes. Well, then $375 is not your bottom line, right? So the point of all that in creating that is, okay, we're priced at $395. Let's this weekend, for a week, let's change the MLS, let's market the house like crazy at $375 or $380 for this weekend only. We're reducing the price from $395 to $380. You never see anybody do this. You see it all the time in cars and clothes and stuff.
Absolutely.
This weekend only, $380. House to be open on Sunday from 1 to 4. There's nothing that says you can't raise that price back up on Monday to $395. The Paragon lets you do that. And people say, well, yeah, but then they're going to know we listed at $380. Yeah, and if somebody said that, you know, gives you an offer at $380, you're going to take it. So it's okay. You know, that may be a motivating place that the agent does their homework and they go into the history and they see that they have listed at $380. And so they say, well, gosh, at $395, we know we can accept, you know, get an offer at $380 because that's what they had. We'll be happy because $375 was our bottom line. The other strategy, again, don't see many people that I used to do this, is every week reduced it by $5,000. Because now you're going to change the status. And what's different than when I was in the market compared to you guys is that every time you do that, there are people on Zillow and Realtor.com and whichever ones you want that have earmarked your listing because they're interested in it, and they're watching. It's almost like an auction.
Yeah.
They start watching, go down and say, I wonder how far this will go before
Somebody's gonna buy it.
buy it. And if I'm really intrigued by it, I come in and I make an offer at some point, because if they go another $5,000 next week, somebody's gonna buy it. I want to be the one in that place. Both of those situations, you could try for a couple of weeks, and if you don't increase the traffic, you go back up to your price.
Do you guys talk about, again, this is personal experience, that, you know, when I was selling and I couldn't sell something, and realtor, the in-house sales, whatever, the people who were responsible, you know, that's really, okay, we're ultimately gonna talk about price, right? I mean, we're either gonna give something away or we're gonna lower the price. And my perspective was always, well, what else is selling? And so, like in Belvedere, you get frustrated, they're frustrated. They got emotions, they got needs, they got personal situations, and they're gonna share those with you in a negative way. But the reality is, it may not be right, and it may be just an absence of buyer.
That's right.
I mean, those both can happen.
And that's the whole point of
If you
making
have
it.
that conversation, would you pull statistics in for that price, you know, a $50,000 price range, say, over the last 30 days, here's what's sold, and
So here, going back to,
50 to 400.
going back to Sturbridge for a minute.
Okay.
Exactly what we did. Hey, if it was our marketing and houses were selling all around you, I would agree with you. But in this price range of I forget what we did, it was 650 to 850 or 7 to 850. One house is pended in the last 60 days.
Yeah.
It's not like it's just no buyer. And that goes back to what I was saying. I know I interrupted you, but that's what I'm going back to saying. I can try these other things, but if I can see that nothing else is selling, I can go back to the price because it may not have been, we tried something different, see if we can kind of bait the hook and, you know, grab something in, but it didn't work. Let's go back to the price that we feel is reasonable because it's just that there's no buyers right now. Go ahead.
I know what our problem is. Our challenge is not like our buyers, is new construction competition.
Can we talk
On
about
the other
that?
end of town, I mean, they're selling them.
Yeah.
And I had 2 showings the other day, and the realtor told me flat out.
Yeah, and that comes back to price.
Against new construction.
Right, to compete with them, you
Why
gotta
would I
look at the
buy
price.
something?
So it's a matter of-
Good example. Usually when things were bad, Old Trail, you know, the Bates were,
Yeah.
you know, in
I was
there.
probably building out there.
Yeah, and we were the only realtor out there with the, you know, so, you know, we met with them on a regular basis. And I believe, I'd like to say that we had a lot to do with the fact that we finally got the Bates. Obviously, they had pressure from other places, but we said, you gotta lower the lot prices. You gotta get new construction to this price to create momentum. You gotta get that village built. You gotta get a clubhouse done.
Yeah.
So you have a community. And so they did. Well, all the resale people were angry because all the new construction was at a lower price and they felt it, but look, I mean, forget the last 6 months. Before that, resale people are totally happy now because it took that to get this, right? It took that, you gotta take a hit to get that momentum going back the other way, which they did for a good long while. Now we're in a lull. But you're absolutely right. You're competing right up against new construction. And while you're in that situation, there's really nothing you can do
Other
about the
than
price.
lower price.
Have it in impeccable condition so it looks like the model. Somebody that doesn't want to wait till 2019. They come in and say, well, we can live with this.
Yeah, a
And
house came on the market that I had built, and it was yesterday. It's a very nice house. And it's a big number.
630, is this the one that the social problem with?
Yeah.
She tried to get on for a little while.
Well, and, you know, nothing like that's getting built anymore, so they may survive the new, but if you're a town or a small, single family, I mean, the guy building the new one, he probably bought a lot cheaper, and, you know, that won't last forever, but because these lots, I mean, developers are already pushing a lot of prices up, and so eventually this will stabilize and normalize. But it depends on your situation, right?
Are they willing to outweigh that? That is the question.
But you can't, I mean, you can't fight City Hall. I mean, if they got as much newer features, brand new, carpet's never been touched, never been walked on with anybody else, and
you chose it.
and you got a resale, and boy, you know, get a new home person comparing those two. It's a hard, you
Do you really literally compare apples to oranges? You really do.
yeah, if the new home salesperson's any good. So,
But it is what it is, so let's see.
So let me just hit a couple things, and I need to go, so I got this big brothers, big sisters thing. Competitive market analysis, and we can go back through this another time, but you got the car MLS info, you know, there's also Paragon CMA, you got Toolkit. I'm not sure why I have Top Producer in there. I don't think they have a CMA. The Top Producer is a CRM type of product that you can do all your database stuff.
that's different than being a peak producer.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The peak producer is much more exceptional than a top producer.
I'm a Logan, I don't make sure.
That's right. Well, Bob too.
Absolutely. But again, go back to what we were talking about. That's right, Bob won't tell him anything about it. He keeps on trying to get to know him. Bob to flex him by talking about Ronald Reagan. But the other thing, just so you know, there's this thing called tax assessment to sales price ratio, where if you're in an area where it's not a neighborhood, and you're trying to figure out, going back to what you said earlier about price and what makes sense, this is a great way to have a second opinion. I'm not a big believer in the square footage, price per square foot, because I think but this, you can take the tax assessment and you can take houses that are, similar in bedroom size and things like that, and you can see what the tax assessment is and what it's sold for. And it's either going to be under 1.0 or it's going to be under 1.0 or above 1.0. And you have the high factor.
Where do you get that from?
Well, you go into tax records,
Okay.
into Illinois, and you see what the house is assessed for. And then you compare it to the sold price.
Okay, you have to do it manually.
Yeah.
You can't go into Paradise.
Although you probably the way you can do it by importing it into Excel, and then they would do the math for you. But anyway, the point being is you got a high and a low. Some may be sold for less than tax assessment, some may sold for more. So now you got an average. And what you do is you take the high, and you take the low, and you take the average, and then you take your tax assessed property, your subject property tax bill, and you multiply by high, you multiply by low, and you multiply by average, and see if that range is similar to what your gut is telling you in regards to the comparables that you've chosen. It's just another way. Quite honestly, it's a nice little differentiator when you do that for somebody, especially out in a not normal neighborhood scenario. Other agents probably aren't doing that. They go, "Oh, that's pretty cool." They obviously are looking at it in a much more analytical way, professional way than the other folks. So it could be the difference between getting the deal or not. But it really does give you just another snapshot of where the market is. And the last thing is the dealing with appraisers. We can talk all day long about getting to 600,000, but if the appraiser's not going to appraise it, if somebody's coming in for a 90% loan to value, deal, no PMI deal, and you get a $600,000 price and they put $60,000 and it's 540 and it appraises at 560, you're out. The buyer can't do what they wanted to do, and hopefully in our company, we train you guys well enough that you write in any other terms that the property must appraise. If it's not an FHA or VA loan, property must appraise to a contract price, or buyer and seller must mutually agree on a price, blah, blah, blah. But the point being is, it's another thing another thing to say to the sellers, look, all day long I'll try to get you 600,000, but I just want you to understand that we're really in the 560. If I'm an appraiser looking at the three comparables that I think the appraiser's going to look at, I think we're really at 560. So even if we get a $600,000 price, unless they're putting a lot of money down, you need to hold your breath until we get to the appraiser because we haven't gotten your house sold yet. And sometimes that can be a way of the seller going, yeah, and it's a whole line of, it used to be that the house is worth what somebody's willing to pay for it, and my line is the house is worth what the lender's willing to lend for it. Unless there's a significant amount of money that's being put down, or even a cash deal, you hope for the cash deal. But again, if I'm worth my salt as a buyer agent, I'm saying to the buyer, yeah, we'll pay cash, 600,000, but we want to make sure it appraises for that. And you might even say it has to appraise for at least 580. I mean, you can put your own terms in it. My brother sold his house in Arlington a few months ago, listed it at 825 with Kate. Kate said, let's go at 825. Go back to what you said earlier. Let's go a little less than I think you can get for it, and really create. They got 9 contracts on it. The highest one was 895 cash. And a guy wrote in, interestingly enough, and had to appraise that he would pay up to $50,000 more than the appraisal.
Wow.
So basically what it said to my brother was if 825 was the low number, the worst he's going to do is 875. Right? Well, it appraised for 850 or something, so it was over. So they got full price. They got the 895. But they were willing, and that's how he ended up being picked number 1 out of 9. Because he said, yeah, I want to make sure it appraises for something, but I'm paying cash. So I don't really care, but I do want it to be within a 50. That's a big number, right? And it didn't appraise for 885, but it appraised for enough that adding 50 went over his price. So again, dealing with the appraisers and using that appraiser as the bad guy. Hey, I'd love for you to get 600,000. We may get 600,000, but we don't have 600,000 until the appraiser says we got 600,000.
I know you're late, but can I ask for my 2 minutes, or?
Yeah.
Here's what would help me, and Logan, you've already done some of this, so maybe it would help you. But for me, it would almost help me for you guys to pick a house and say, okay, let's do a marketing, you go get your marketing, I'm gonna do mine. And I'd like to hear, for example, if you're in Belvedere and you've got a resale, and I know Belvedere, so you could do